Hello, and welcome to episode 34 of Design Curious Podcast. I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. Today on the show, we have Jessica Marshall of Brass Rose Interiors, and you're going to love hearing her story. It is a unique one for our show because she is a hospitality designer, and so she has a lot of great insight about that. So let me tell you a little bit about her, but first I want to remind you I have a special download for you, the 3 things I wish I had known before starting my career in interior design. So you can go into the show notes, click on that link, and get that into your inbox because I know you want to know more about the career and the things that I wish I had known before I started out. Okay, let me tell you a little about Jessica. She is the Sacramento area's only interior designer focused on the hospitality industry who has over 20 years of experience in both the UK and the US. She's also the only interior designer that has been voted in as a board member for California Restaurant Association. So already great accolades. After graduating from the university with a degree in interior design, she decided to focus on hospitality industry. Interning at HBA led her to a LA company where she did purchasing and project management for luxury hotels, working on projects such as Ojai Valley Inn and Spa. From intern to interior designer to design director, she has designed and managed interior projects for Marriott, Hilton, and IHG. With a desire to work internationally, she lived in England for 8 years, where she got to work throughout the UK, evolving brand interiors for restaurants and bars, both front and back of house. Currently settled in California, Jessica decided to open Brass Rose to exclusively serve boutique business owners following a dream, looking to build a custom experience through service and atmosphere. And we get into all the details about her journey in the episode, so let's get to it. You're now listening to Design Curious, a place where you, creative one, are here to learn about what it really is like to be an interior designer. And I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. If you're worried about how to succeed in a creative career, if you're ready to learn your next steps to become an interior designer, and if you want the satisfaction of doing something you love every day, you are in the right place. Grab a coffee, a notebook, and let's dig into today's episode. Hi, Jessica. Thank you for coming on Design Curious Podcast. So great to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I am really interested to hear your story because we've been friends for a couple of years and I don't know if I know your full story. So, so why don't we get started on how you got into interior design?
Okay. So I actually got started from interior design in high school. I grew up in a very small town that had cows and horses. And one of our classes was actually interior design, kind of more residential based. But they had a few people come over from like different universities and kind of give their spill on like their program within interior design.
Mm.
And like being from a small town, I was like, I am out of here when I'm graduated. I'm going to go to a college that's far away. But then I ended up, the one that I got accepted to, well, I got accepted to a few, but the one I ended up going to was actually San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
That one was kind of closer by than I was expecting, but it was so different from here.
Yeah, still a big city.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Still a big city, completely
Yeah.
different from like cows and horses. I mean, because I grew up in Loomis, California, so
Yeah.
it's a lot different now. Sacramento's a
Yeah.
lot different now too, which is good. But yes, that's how I kind of got dropped into it.
Okay. Did you know that you were creative before, like hearing that talk on interior design? Did it just you gravitated towards that subject because it's kind of something that you're interested
Yeah, because
already?
it was really artsy and creative. In high school, it seemed like the only thing I was actually interested in was like art. And then also like we had a humanities class and I was interested in the humanities class too.
Mm-hmm.
But that was kind of more, well, what do I do with that? It'd be like more museum jobs and everything. So it was like, well, how could I make money and be an artist at the same time? And so interior design was kind of what I leaped into. I actually, before I went to college, I had no idea actually what it really entailed.
Oh, okay.
So going into college, it made me understand really the program I was in.
Mm-hmm.
There's like all these different options that you could go into, like residential, you could go into commercial, you could go into hospitality. And that before I had no idea. It was like a whole experience.
Yeah. So how did you like San Francisco, the university that you went to? Did you thought it was a good program and they had good options for interior design?
Yeah, it was great. So I ended up choosing the private. So I went to the Fashion Institute of
Okay.
Design and Merchandising.
Mm-hmm.
I did that because I was quite impatient. They had a program where you could get through your BA within 3 years.
Mm.
So it wasn't taking a break or anything. So I ended up selecting that one. And it was really cool because you had to still do like your normal like math and your history and
Yeah.
also your English, but they also had all those different areas within interior design that you got to explore. So they had like
Mm-hmm.
a residential thesis, they had commercial, and they had a hospitality one. So throughout the 3 years that you were actually there, you were kind of exploring those three different
Oh,
avenues.
okay. So you didn't have to choose one. They let you explore
Yeah.
all of them.
Mhm.
Oh,
All
that's
of them.
great.
Yeah. And then they made you do an internship. I think every college or university should make you do that for sure.
I agree. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so where did you intern at?
So I ended up interning at Hirsch Bennett Associates. So HBA, they're like the kings of hospitality.
Mm,
They own the hospitality interior design world.
yeah.
They do all the really big, luxurious. They do a lot of fun hotels too.
Mm-hmm.
So they do like the Ritz Carltons and they do the huge Marriotts and Hiltons and everything. And I think for me, because I was like right out of high school and I was like, I'm out of this little town. I want to go see the world. I want to go
Mm-hmm.
experience everything. Hospitality really interested me because it had like, I was able to go traveling for work
Mm,
or I was able to experience all the restaurants in San Francisco. So it's just the more traveling and culture that appealed to me, it was more like the whole hospitality industry. I
mm,
was like, that's my jam. And
yeah.
living in San Francisco, every time like we went out to like all the fancy restaurants and we checked out all the fancy hotels and anytime I got to travel, I was like, this is what I want to design. It felt there was like a huge pull towards that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was just because mainly I wanted to travel. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because I've always been interested in different cultures and
Mm-hmm.
my family's always been about food too. So anything to do with food, I'm like, all right.
Wow, that's really great that you were able to intern for them. Did you end up working for them after college or what was the next step?
No, actually. So after college, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm done. Like, because you're so used to just going to school your whole life. And then once that's done, you're like, okay, now I need to like figure out where I'm going, what I'm doing. So within my internship, they were talking about you kind of have to go wherever the jobs are.
Mm-hmm.
So I applied like all over the place. And I ended up applying pretty much anywhere and everywhere. I actually did get a position at HBA, but they wanted me to move to Hong Kong,
Oh.
and I wasn't ready to move to Hong Kong. So I ended up taking this position in Santa Monica that I
Mhm.
applied for, which was in hospitality design. So I went down there, lived in Santa Monica and Redondo Beach. So that was
That
awesome.
sounds great.
Work, you could just go to the beach and there were
Yeah.
dolphins and it was
Oh.
cool. So I got a really good, but I mean, she hired me because of my experience in my internship with
Mm-hmm.
HBA.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a small boutique kind of business like ours. She had actually only one other girl working with her. So I
Okay.
ended up making her a team of three. So we
Yeah.
ended up doing some really cool hotels. Like we ended up doing the Ojai Valley Inn.
Mm.
Ended up doing a lot of the franchisee hotels that do like the Best Westerns.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a great experience because she was so small. I ended up doing a lot of like the purchasing, and we did the
Mm-hmm.
crafting and a lot of the project coordinating. And then we got to touch like a few little, the concept design. She mostly did the concept design.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So working for a smaller firm, did you also see the business side of it as well?
yes. Yep. We heard all about her headaches. We heard all about things that she loved. I mean, we worked some funny schedules. We worked because she wasn't a morning person.
Oh.
She worked 10 to 7. So we worked 10 to 7. But yeah, we got to learn a lot about the business side. I think working for a small firm is like really awesome because you get to like have hands on like everything, like from
Mm-hmm.
the business side, from the purchasing side,
Mm-hmm.
from the project management, from design. So you get to touch like loads of different things. Yeah. And because she was a small office, she shared an office with her brother in law and her husband, and they ended up doing movies
Oh.
and skydiving. So like when I was trying to project manage all of the the hotels that we had and stuff, I used to watch her brother-in-law go like in and out of our office with his parachute. And I was like, I want to do that. And so one day on my day off, he took me to go skydiving, and I got addicted to skydiving.
Oh no.
The
Oh.
addiction wasn't actually the adrenaline rush, it was the clarity. So it's
Oh.
like you're jumping out of the plane and you're falling at like 200 miles per hour,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're just so focused on like pulling your chute, like the only thing you're thinking about is that one thing. And so, like, all the stress of like your job and life and
Mm.
work and everything just goes like right out of your head. And that
Mm.
was addiction. So I ended up not only doing interior design down in Santa Monica, I ended up doing some skydiving.
Jumping with people like a
No, so
tandem or
the
just
guy who taught me how to skydive actually did like Point Break.
oh.
We did Charlie's Angels. So we worked on a few commercials that her brother-in-law and her husband got. So then, like in the evenings, or like sometimes I wouldn't even be doing interior design. I'd end up doing like a jump, and so they'd film me, and then when they like zoom in to the person who actually lands, it's a model.
Oh. But you would be up at the one up in the air.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean the one up in the air.
Wow,
Like,
that's so
it's,
interesting.
but there's a connection to
Okay.
interior for this. So all about like the whole like traveling and everything. The guy who taught me how to skydive ended up getting me a job in New Zealand, and this is
Oh.
kind of like around the time I think Lord of the Rings like first came out. It's kind of like, oh, I've heard about New Zealand because of this movie. But so I ended up going there. So I ended up actually taking a whole year off of interior design. And I think I did that because when I got burnt out from going right from high school to college and then doing like that 3 year like push and not having
Yeah.
time off except for like a week for the holidays,
Mm-hmm.
and then like right into a job. And then I think something, and it is stressful, like the whole like project management and like the whole procurement and stuff of interior design is stressful.
Yeah.
It's really stressful. And then I think being able to like to take that break to work abroad, I couldn't turn down. So I ended up doing that. And then I lived down there for a year doing skydiving on like movies and a few cinematography of cameras and the tandems.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up meeting my husband there. And so my
Skydiving.
husband, yeah, skydiving. Well, he wouldn't skydive to like, you wouldn't skydive at all. But he was actually working in Australia, but traveling around New Zealand.
Oh.
So I met him down there, and he's from England. So after a year down there, he ended up proposing,
Oh.
and I ended up moving to England, and then I got back into interior design
When you went to England.
when I went to England.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's kind of circuitous, but it makes sense, like having that kind of a gap year or, some time to just
Yeah, it
really
was
explore
kind of
yourself. Yeah.
it was an unexpected gap. And I just ended up getting into kind of like a dangerous passion.
Mm-hmm.
But But it's still, and it kind of like checked off the whole like travel bug that I had
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And it just kind of led me on like a whole like international interior design path, even though I took that year off.
Yeah. So what is it like designing internationally? Like, what are
It's
the
so
differences?
different. They have so many different codes and regulations,
Mm,
but America has the most restriction out of
mm,
everything.
okay. Okay.
So it was in a way a little easier
Mm-hmm.
doing hospitality because I did end up going back to hospitality. I didn't try to like switch between residential or even like office buildings or commercials. So I
Mm-hmm.
ended up getting a job in Manchester doing restaurants. We did a few little pubs that had like inns above them,
Oh yeah.
but they were mainly restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
It was really interesting. I think the more like we have a lot of like the ADA codes and a lot of restrictions depending on your jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
Jurisdiction kind of really depends on the codes that you end up doing for the restaurant that you end up doing, which is kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But there, it was like the whole country was pretty much uniformed. You did have ADA regulations that were not as regulated as ours are here.
Yeah.
The most regulations that you had over in England was actually the buildings. So a lot of them were historical buildings.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So one of the buildings that we worked on, it was a crypt,
Oh.
like way back in like the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
Then it turned into a wine cellar, and then it turned into a cafe.
Oh wow.
So when we did the remodel for that, we had to actually get an archaeologist to make sure we weren't disturbing any bones. We
Mm-hmm.
we couldn't put any holes, like any new holes, we couldn't put in the building at all.
Oh
So
my
we had
goodness.
to work with what was there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a challenge with the lights because the lights were like really dim. Those were kind of the challenges I found in Europe that we worked with a lot. So most of the historical buildings.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wow. How fun though. So once you had decided on hospitality design, were you ever curious about exploring other commercial or residential, or is it just like you knew hospitality was for you and you still love it, obviously? So,
Yeah, no, it was always just hospitality was always what I loved. I've never thought about anything else.
yeah.
I mean, like recently I've thought about like more of like the boutique office buildings
Mm-hmm.
and some retail, but it's still
Yeah.
hospitality. So
Yeah.
it's really just restaurants and boutique hotels for sure.
That's great. That's like I mean, it's really like a niche that you can just stay and do excellent
Yeah.
at, you really excel at that. And
Mhm.
that's why when I get inquiries for those types of things, I send them your way because you're really
Thank
good
you
at
for that. I
it.
love that.
Yeah.
No, I think it's really just based on like what you love.
Mhm.
Like like I was talking about like with my family, it's always kind of been about, you gather with your family and it's always about the food. It's always around food. And then my experience in San Francisco really changed me because of the restaurants that we went to, the atmosphere, and then college, the hospitality thesis. We got to design. I mean, obviously, when you're in college, like you design a hotel, right? But you're not given a budget. So
Mhm.
it's just like, okay, just design it. And it's
Yeah.
like based off your creativity. And it was also based off code, which was cool.
Mhm.
But when you get into real life, when it's about the budget, restaurants do have that challenge of a budget, like a
Mhm.
really tight budget, especially with a lot of the clients that I have, because it's kind of like they're trying to create their dream, but it's also like they're just beginning. So they don't
Mhm.
have like a lot of capital to put into it.
Right.
So that's one of the challenges of doing the restaurant industry is that it's not that often where you get a restaurant owner who's willing. I mean, sometimes you do, who's willing to put out like, I don't know, 500,000.
Mhm.
That's a lot for a restaurant, unless it's like a huge, they're planning to actually franchise out.
Yeah, that is budget is always challenging really in any aspect of design because it's
It
so
is.
limiting. to your
Yeah,
dreams and hopes.
it is, right? And then you
Yeah.
have the challenge with hospitality where it's like you've got to make sure that your materials are very durable and
Yes.
they meet, well, for here, they meet your fire rated codes and stuff. I
Right.
actually, they might have changed it in England since I've been there because I was in England about 8 years ago, actually
Mhm.
9 years ago now. And there wasn't anything that had to do with like fire rating.
Oh, okay.
We made sure like the materials were actually like durable
Mm-hmm.
and they could sustain like the amount of people they were going to have. But yeah, the fire rating wasn't
Mm.
an issue over there. Like we never really had to worry about that. Maybe because it rains so much over
Right.
there.
Yeah,
It's
California is
freezing.
tinderbox.
Because most of their buildings aren't wood or
Yeah,
stone.
that's true.
So.
That is true. There's a little bit less flammable, I think.
Yeah,
Okay, so you were in England up till about 9 years ago, and then you decided to move back to California, or
I did. Yes. Yeah. So, because I was originally from here when I was in England, after I did like my whole, like, okay, New Zealand, working in New Zealand, and then working in England, I was away from high school until then. So that was a good, I'm bad at math. This is why I'm an interior designer. Like just 20 years or so, whatever.
yeah.
But being in England, my grandparents passed away, so it was
Mm.
kind of hard. Like they like literally passed away like all within like the same year.
Oh no.
And it was hard for me to get the funding to come back home for like
Yeah.
all the funerals and for, I mean, before even the funerals, just to say goodbye and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
it was time for me to come back home. So I kind of did like a whole circle. But yeah, so that was the main reason why I came back. And then I just got right back into the hospitality aspect of it. When I was actually working in England, the company that I worked for, CDS Williams, they did back of house commercial design. So like the kitchen. So
Oh,
we
okay.
ended
Yeah.
up doing all of the what we call like K sheets over here. So the kitchen
Mm-hmm.
equipment sheets. So that was the first company I worked for that basically zeroed in on restaurants. And
Mm.
not only did they zero in like the front of house, their main thing was actually doing the commercial kitchens.
Okay. Yeah, because
So
that's
that,
usually a separate ball game from
yeah, it
the
is. It's
design. Yeah.
normally separate. That company was really cool because they did pretty much everything. So they picked out stuff from the plates that go on the tables to the front of house design to the branding to actually the installation. So they had their own construction team too.
Wow.
They were big. So working at a company like that, you got to experience a lot of it, but you got to kind of understand how important it was for like the operational flow of the restaurant
Mm-hmm.
because you could make it look as pretty as you want, but unless they have the like operational flow, unless they have the right staff for the service, unless they have the right food coming out, they don't really succeed. So you kind of need all those things. So learning that was it was gold, really.
Mm-hmm.
Learning about the kitchen equipment, learning about the operational flow on your design for the front of house. And then, so when I moved back here, I actually found a company who did that also,
Oh,
minus
okay.
the install bit. They didn't do the install bit, but
Mm-hmm.
they did. Commercial kitchen was actually their it was their main thing. So they did all the commercial kitchen drawings and design. And so they hired me to actually build up their interior design. So that way they were able to offer their clients like the full service.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And so then at what point did you start your company?
So I only started my company like 2 years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm what do you call it? Like a baby business owner. But I've been doing interior design for hospitality for like over 20 years. But yeah, so when I got here, the company that I worked for was a great company. They were based in Sacramento, and
Mm-hmm.
that was the whole reason why I moved back because my family's in this area.
Mm-hmm.
But they moved their headquarters to Costa Mesa, and I wasn't going to move because I just moved back.
Right.
So I ended up not working with them anymore, and I got back into hotel design for this other company. And this other company, they did like the really big hotels. So they did the Wyndham Garden Inns, they did the Marriotts, they did the IHG hotels,
Mm-hmm.
the really big franchise hotel, Hilton. Hilton was really fun to work on. I like the Hiltons.
Yeah.
So I also built their interior design company up. I decided 2 years ago to start my own.
I think that's great. And how are you enjoying it, being a
I
business
love
owner?
it. Oh
Yeah.
my God, I love it so much. I do. I love it because you get to select the projects that you want to work on.
Hmm.
Really, I know as a business owner, and I mean, you have to make your bills. So that's always the, scary part
Yeah.
is getting, all the financing to all the money.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Great. Good. So where do you see yourself going? Like, do you think you'll grow to the size of having some employees, or you're just gonna see how it goes from here?
I think I would like to, but I think I'd like to stay boutique. I
Okay.
don't think honestly I'd have probably more than like 5 people. I
Hmm.
mean, that's how I see myself currently, really.
Hmm.
I think it would be awesome to somehow collaborate or like partner with someone who does kitchen design, as in like the commercial kitchen design, just because it's not really I could do it. I'm
Hmm.
good at it, but I don't really like it as
Hmm.
much.
Yeah.
So to hire someone on or to collaborate with someone who actually does that bit would be good.
Hmm.
And then obviously getting someone to do bookkeeping
Right. Yeah.
too. Social media, I'm not very good at social media. I think it's probably my age where I'm not like, I don't know, I'm kind of more so focused in the moment. I sometimes forget to video things or take
Right.
pictures
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
things. And that's what I'm bad at.
Yeah, we can outsource that eventually, I'm sure. Yeah, so for someone who is maybe going to design school and considering hospitality design, what are your recommendations? Like, what is it that they need to kind of really be interested in or know about before committing to hospitality?
For hospitality, I think if you have more of like an interest and a passion for like traveling and food, that's kind of the base of it.
Hmm.
But knowing that hospitality design has a lot to do with code restrictions, it
Hmm.
has a lot to do with operational flows of the business.
Hmm.
It's kind of not really all about your aesthetic. Like if it was all about my aesthetic, things would be like black and elegant and have some crazy fun graffiti artwork all over the place. But but it's more about your client's brand and
Hmm.
what they're trying to achieve as their own customer experience.
Hmm.
Like we just finished up a boutique law office.
Hmm.
She was a divorce attorney, and her client experience, what she wanted is that she wanted it to be like cozy and comforting and like here's a tissue, not like I'm
Yeah.
going to like, make sure you get what you need kind of thing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
like her interiors were all about that. It was more natural and it was comfy and cozy for her clients.
Hmm.
So that was her brand. And then it's kind of, yeah, like especially with the restaurants, like if you kind of have more of like an idea of like menu and logo, that's kind of
Hmm.
more of what we go off of. And
Hmm.
how you want your clients to your customers who come into the restaurant to experience, how you want them to. So it's about the
Right.
brand, their
Yeah.
client journey. Really, that's how you end up designing for them.
Do you work a lot with graphic designers on the branding, messaging, and brand development? Or is that something that you actually work on yourself? Like, have you developed your graphic design skills and things like that for working with a brand so closely to develop
Mm.
it?
I recommend that they always go to a graphic designer
Hmm.
or a brand specialist. A lot of times when the clients come to me, especially with the restaurants, they already have like their logo and their menu. So they've already started working with someone who does branding.
Hmm.
And then if they don't, then I have many times, it seems like lately, put together kind of like a guideline.
Hmm.
So I'm doing a piano bar right now, and the guy, he literally gave me like a t-shirt of like a Miami Vice kind of theme.
Hmm.
And that's what I had to go off of. So he hasn't started
Okay.
with a brand yet, or
Yeah.
a brand or a graphic artist. which I suggested he does. But what we can do is kind of end up choosing like, well, this is what the font and the colors that would look like based off of the interior design. These are like the wine glasses, the cocktail glasses, the silverware and stuff that will look good. So we kind of give him a guideline, but yeah, to get like all of that. So he's got like business cards and websites and stuff that actually coordinate with his brand. We suggest that.
Yeah.
They're a professional. But we could give them ideas and guidelines.
Yeah. Anything else you would recommend for designers starting out or someone curious about doing hospitality design?
Definitely always do an internship.
Okay.
No matter what. I also feel because in high school, it's kind of like all about the grades. So that way you could get into the college. But then I found out that like, no one told me, but like they don't really care about your grades in college. So it doesn't really matter if you get like straight A's. I'm not saying like flunk your classes, but it's not really the main focus. I feel like if you end up out of college having a really good portfolio and really good experience and then like decent grades, you're good. You're like totally golden. And I think I stressed a lot in college about just trying to get like a really good grade.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then also the internship, which I, experience, resources, getting to know people is definitely something, whether you're in your own business or you're in school or thinking about going to college, just getting like networking and getting to know people is like a huge advantage. So internship and resources.
Yeah, well, that's great advice. Thanks. Where can people find you if they want to look at your work?
They can find me on my website, which is just www.brassrosestudios.com, or they can find me on Instagram. I'm normally on Instagram. I haven't moved over to TikTok yet, but Instagram is just at Brass Rose Studios.
Okay, great. We'll include that in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming on. It's been great talking to you. I think you're my first hospitality designer. So it's great to get your perspective and then just hearing all the different avenues that you took to get to where you are today. So it's so interesting. Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We'll talk to you soon. Such an interesting path that Jessica had, and I really enjoyed hearing her story, even about skydiving. You never know what experiences are going to inform your current career choice and give you some more knowledge that you can apply to your design projects. So I really loved interviewing Jessica, and go ahead and reach out to her if you want to ask her more about hospitality design. If that's something you're interested in, we'll have her contact info in the show notes. And you can find those at rwarddesign.com/podcast. Don't forget to leave a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. I love to read those and hear what you enjoy about the Design Curious podcast. Stay tuned for next week, another great episode. And until then, stay creative. Thanks for listening. If you love this episode, please leave a rating and a review. This helps me reach other curious creatives like you. If you have a topic request or would like to contact me, simply head over to my website, rwarddesign.com, or email me at podcast@rwarddesign.com.